At this time, I'd like to introduce Congressman Stephen Lynch. Go right ahead. A few minutes is yours.
Thank you. Should I speak from here or down there, Howard?
Well, this is
All right.
easier.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Howard. Good evening, everyone. Normally, during the week, I'm in Washington, D.C., but fortunately, they let us out on parole for the week, and I have an opportunity briefly to share with you some of the updates from Washington, D.C., and I appreciate, Howard, your kindness and courtesy in allowing me to address town meeting. I know I've seen the warrant, and I know you've got a lot of work ahead of you, so I'll try to be brief. There is some reason for optimism in the last 5 weeks in Washington. There have been a series of very major bills that have gone through and been passed and signed by the President. We passed the Department of Homeland Security bill with a combination of Republicans and Democrats. There weren't enough Republicans to support it. We didn't have unanimity among Democrats either, but by going back and forth and amending the bill between Democrats and Republicans, like you're supposed to, we came up with a good Department of Homeland Security bill that, as I say, passed both houses and was signed by the President. Similarly, the Amtrak authorization bill, a 5-year bill. This had been opposed in past Congresses, so we finally had a breakthrough there, and that's very important to rail security and to rail commerce as well. And most of the Amtrak funding goes to the Northeast, so that's particularly important for our region. And lastly, the Medicare Protection Act, which contained a provision called the doc fix that had been a problem in previous Congresses. It provides funding for Medicare and Medicaid. It also provides money for community health centers, and it makes sure that seniors for their health care don't get shuttled off to a voucher system. It actually funds Medicare and Medicaid. So both at the federal and state level, a good bill. And that had been opposed in the past, but again, between negotiations from the House Republicans and Democrats and in the Senate, we were able to get that done. This last week, we had 2 spending bills, one for the Military Construction and Veterans Affairs Department and the Energy and Water Bill. We are trying to approach the appropriations bill in a timely manner this year. We have 16 appropriation bills. There are some concerns, some lingering concerns with funding for veterans benefits. And the bill that actually went before the House contained a provision that might in some cases reduce funding for veterans benefits. So I oppose that. I am actually a strong supporter of veterans and veterans benefits. So after talking to VFW and a lot of other AMVETS and a lot of other veterans groups, we chose to oppose it. I believe the President will veto it and return it to us and ask us to make those adjustments. Those are benefits that our veterans have earned, and I think that we have an obligation to make sure that they get every bit of benefit, health care, and benefits that they have earned. We also have we had a vote on the budget conference report, but unfortunately, it does not make some critical investments in infrastructure, and it cuts Pell Grants for students. A lot of students in our area are struggling with student loans, and so I voted against that. It's moving forward, but I have a feeling the President might veto that as well and send it back to us. One of the big bills that's on the horizon in the next few weeks, we're considering the Trans-Pacific Partnership. This is a major trade bill. The way these bills work is that the trade bill is actually negotiated in secret, which I'm not fond of. I'm charged with responsibility of voting on your behalf, and if I can't read the bill, I can't very well do a good job at reflecting your wishes. So we've got a set to going back and forth with the president's trade advisor, and up until this point, we haven't come to agreement. They would like us to pass a bill called Fast Track, which would allow the trade bill to go through without amendment. And that's when you usually fix a bill in the House and in the Senate, is you attach amendments to delete the things you don't like and maybe add a few things that you do. But right now, if that Fast Track were to pass, we wouldn't have a whole lot of input. And I think that this type of process has led to the export of a lot of American jobs overseas. This particular Trans-Pacific Partnership trade bill deals with 11 countries. Now, some of the countries are steady partners, and I'm not really worried as much as some others. It does include Australia, Canada, Japan, New Zealand. Those are stable democracies, and I think we have predecessor agreements with all of those countries, so we know we have a good starting base. But the bill also includes, the agreement also includes Chile and Peru and Vietnam. Vietnam, I was there a little while ago, and it's a communist country. Its labor standards are very, very low. There's big concern about child labor. The environmental standards there in the line of production is not nearly what it needs to be. So we don't want to be competing against companies that relocate to places like Vietnam that use child labor or prison labor, and we want to make sure we can read this bill, read this agreement before we have to vote on it. So I'm opposing the fast track legislation. I'm going to vote no on that. And once I get a chance to read the bill and figure out how it's going to impact us, each and every one of those agreements with those 11 countries, then if I think it's in your best interest, I would support it. But in the past, these bills have expedited the removal of jobs from the United States to foreign countries. So we've got to be very careful about how we proceed. We're still trying to work out the transportation funding bill, the highway bill. They're talking about another very short-term extension. Unfortunately, there's no governor in the country that can work with a one-year transportation bill, because most of these big projects take 4 or 5 years. So it's of no use to Governor Baker or to any governor in the country to have a 6-month extension or a 1-year extension. The way these projects work now, it takes about a year to do the environmental study on any project of any size. Then you have an engineering portion, and then finally you get a shovel in the ground around year 3. So obviously a 6-month or a 1-year extension does nothing for us. And frankly, we have about $1 trillion in back work, maintenance that's not been done on our highways and bridges and transit stations and dams. So we've got about $1 trillion of work that has not been done. That would put an awful lot of Americans to work if we were to come up with a good 5 or 6-year transportation bill. So we're still working towards that. I did have an opportunity to go down to the FEMA headquarters and to testify along with Governor Baker. We were arguing for more snow removal money because most communities, like Stoughton, were buried in about 104 inches last winter. I'm sure I don't need to remind you, but most towns spent their entire allotment for snow removal in the first 6 or 8 weeks. And so we went down there. I had the numbers from I have 22 towns and 3 cities that I represent, and Governor Baker had the data from all 351 cities and towns. So he and I testified before FEMA asking them for additional money. I think we asked for $480 million. Now, we weren't sure we'd get all that, but we figured, if they were going to knock us down a little bit, that was sufficient to take care of the costs for snow removal and any damage to infrastructure that occurred because of the heavy snow and wind. We have to pay for storm recovery and also seawalls. We had a lot of facilities. We had hockey rinks that collapsed. We had warehouses, so there was a lot of cost there. FEMA's decision was not to our liking. They interpreted our winter as being, they wanted to reimburse us for the first 72 hours of that first storm that we got. That's all they wanted to reimburse us for. But what we argued was that that storm actually lasted for 29 days. That was our position. That, you know, for that, it was the same weather pattern that brought all that snow within 29 days, and the temperature never got above freezing, so we never had an opportunity for snow melt in that 29 days. Now, that is a theory that Buffalo, a couple of years ago, succeeded in prevailing in getting extra snow removal money. So they're going to revisit that, and we'll look and see. They said they will be very flexible on going forward on snow removal money, but we've still got a fight to fight there. Let me see. One of the nicest things I get to do is nominate young people to the United States military academies. And Stoughton, historically, has overperformed in this area, and I want to recognize a couple of your young people who have been, I've had the wonderful pleasure of appointing recently. Michaela Sakic of 72 Bassick Circle. Her parents are Linda McNally and Darrell Sakic. She is a graduate of Cardinal Spellman High School, and she will be she's just finishing her second year, but she will be a graduate of the United States Naval Academy, class of 2017. So she's down at Annapolis right now and doing an amazing job. In addition, Jeffrey Johnson of 18 Erica Drive. His parents are Ken and Sherry Ann. He is a graduate of Stoughton High School, and that's right. So he's at West Point. He's at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, and he graduates this year. He will graduate, I think, in July. Maybe late June, early July. The next class goes in July 1st, so I think it's late June. But I got to tell you, Jeffrey has done remarkably well. The way it works when you graduate, where you graduate in rank of class, you have the highest picks. In other words, where you want to specialize. One of the highest demand areas is flight school, coming out of West Point, believe it or not. And Jeffrey, who was appointed battalion commander of his group, so he finished very near the top of his class, was accepted and will begin his training at flight school coming out of West Point after he graduates in late June. So both of these young people, both Michaela and Jeffrey, are a wonderful reflection of the town of Stoughton. And they are a wonderful reflection of not only their parents, but their coaches. They both played local ball here and sports, and their teachers and your community at large. And this is a very, very, very competitive process. Since September 11, 2001, the number of applicants who come in and try to gain admission to the military academies has just quadrupled from what it was before. It's because our young people want to serve for all the right reasons. And it is a wonderful honor, really, to the town of Stoughton that you have done, your sons and daughters have, number one, decided that they would like to serve their country, but have done amazingly well in their performance at these academies. So in closing, I just want to thank you very much for being involved in town meeting. This is democracy at its essence. I have the wonderful honor of representing you in Washington, D.C., but this is where it all begins, right here at town meeting. God bless the town of Stoughton, and God bless these United States of America. Thank you.